Thank you, Mr Chairman. I feel that there has been a good process through which this bill has gone and that it has therefore resulted in a good bill. There were also some very good submissions, but I would have to say that I fundamentally disagree with some of them. The Law Society made a very good submission and suggested that following Taunoa, the bill was actually not needed. And of course, Taunoa did narrow the scope for prisoners' rights to compensation, and that's also what this bill does. But I don't agree that the bill is not needed. What Taunoa did show was that the law was moving in the same direction as this bill is at that time, and no doubt that's a movement which would have been irresistible, but in any event there are some significant advantages in a bill of this kind, and I think the main one is that there is a code there which prisoners and victims can refer to understand their rights. And I think that will go in itself quite a long way to limiting vexatious claims by prisoners and unrealistic expectations by victims. So it's a very good bill for those reasons. I also reject, I think, the submissions by the Ombudsman and the Human Rights Commission. They suggested that the bill would result in a reduction of the human rights for prisoners. And I understand that that's also the position which the Green Party has taken. I don't believe that is the case. It certainly narrows the rights of prisoners and it defines those rights. It does not remove them. So I think there is also a need for a balance between those rights and the rights of victims, and that emphasis is the one which the Labour Party has, I think, quite rightly emphasised. I would have to say this, however, that the real question is whether this bill actually does go far enough. We've heard a couple of speeches from Labour members who suggest that it does not, that there is further work to be done, especially with regard to victims' rights. I suspect that there is some validity in that position. However, I have not really heard any specificity in the claims that more work needs to be done and that the bill doesn't really go far enough. However, New Zealand First is always prepared to listen to those kinds of arguments. I haven't actually heard any yet. I've only heard general claims that more needs to be done, and I don't know what that really is. So if other Labour members can tell me a little bit more, I would be grateful for that. On the other hand, the Greens say it goes too far. They say prisoners' rights will be too constrained. In fact, Mr Clendon said that, and I don't think that is the situation at all. The bill certainly limits and narrows claims. It doesn't really reduce them in any way which I think is a concern for human rights. However, New Zealand First has a different position than either of those, and we feel that the bill does strike the right balance, and in fact we expect that the courts over time will further develop the law with regard to this tension between prisoners' rights and victims' rights, and that it will develop the law within the scope of the bill, and that's appropriate, and I think, and we in New Zealand First think, that that's enough. I am pleased that the government did listen to a number of the submissions, and there's one in particular that I approve of, which concerns the issue of compensation diversion. And as the government originally wished to provide for a compensation diversion provision, which would have meant that there would have been a pool of prisoners' compensation funds which victims could refer to. That, I think, would have gone too far. It really effectively confiscates any compensation which a prisoner had been awarded. So it's much better that that provision has been deleted and that the government did listen to that and now victims may only, in fact, claim for. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May only claim against the specific award of the prisoner who committed the offence, and I think that's appropriate. So I'm glad that the government listened to that and that we have a better bill as a result. It's made it possible for New Zealand First to support the bill because of that good balance. It therefore is a bill which we can support because it does achieve that balance, but that didn't really arise because it was a government bill and a government conceived position. So I don't think the government can really particularly take credit for the bill as it now is, because it's not the bill that it originally introduced. What has actually happened is that the bill has gone through a good process, that it's been amended, that it's been modified, and now we get a good balance. So I think that the bill is a tribute to the process and to those who submitted, and especially to the Justice and Electoral Committee which dealt with it. So we support it because of that process and because it's a good outcome, and we think that it doesn't really need any further work, but if others feel that it does, they need to be more specific about what that should be. So we will be voting for the bill, as I've already said.
Mr. Chairman.
The Honourable Leanne Dalzell.
I'm happy to assist the member with some advice as to what would improve this legislation.